Mindbend. Non-ordinary and extraordinary states of consciousness for Mindbend Creative.
Cheers, Austin.
Cheers.
This episode is officially brought to you by. We're not going to reveal the name.
No, I'm gonna spin the can. We're gonna spin the can.
But you have a ranking of your favorite sparkling waters,
spin
apparently.
The can. Yeah. So I went through a phase in 2020. I said before 2020 started, at the end of 2019, I was like, 2020 is going to be just a normal, regular year. And what I'm going to do is not drink for a year.
Not drink sparkling water?
Not drink alcohol.
Okay.
For a year. And turns out I missed what could arguably be the best drinking year of human history. I was sober from alcohol that whole year. But the thing is, I need to drink 6 of something every night, and so I just started getting
that's
after.
like a superstition thing. Like you won't have a good day the next day unless 6 are consumed.
It's not OCD, but it's that alcoholic kind of like self-soothing of like I want to drink something a lot, and I don't drink just one thing. I'm not like a one thing guy. I'm like I'll have 6. Because I like it, so why wouldn't I do 6 of it instead of 1? Like, if 1 is good, 6 will be excellent.
And you love peeing. It's just something that you enjoy.
I do have I do love peeing. I'm a huge fan of it. I have had peeing times that have been better than some orgasms that I've had. It's really pleasurable to pee.
Okay.
And sparkling water helps with that a lot. And regular water also, fun fact, regular water makes you pee as well. So that's always something to consider when drinking it.
But you weren't abstaining from alcohol for the pleasure of urinating sparkling water. You were trying to have a year on the wagon.
I was trying to have a year on the wagon. Yeah. I was trying to just not drink alcohol for a year. I felt like I had a problem and wanted to readjust my relationship with alcohol.
What was alcohol? Where was alcohol showing up in your life? When were you drinking alcohol?
Always? Not always. No, it wasn't always. It would be, so the way alcoholism lives in my life is it'll start with a week, or it'll start with like, I'll go out and have a couple drinks with friends and it'll be like normal. I'll have like 2 drinks. It'll be regular. And then I'll start having like a drink every day type of kind of thing, like by myself. So it starts very like responsibly, and then it ends up I'm drinking a 6-pack alone in my room on like a Wednesday. But that's just because I don't have like a regular job, so a little more leeway there. I don't have to go to work the next day type of thing. So I'm just drinking like a 6-pack alone in my room. And I just don't like that. It's not very fun. Or I think the worst version of it, even worse than that, is sometimes I would get alcohol and I would be with my girlfriend and she wouldn't drink anything and I would drink 6 beers. And it was like, I was just very annoying to her because I'm fucking drunk and she's stone cold sober on a weeknight where she has to like get up and, go to work and I don't. So it was just like becoming a kind of a problem in that way.
Okay,
and so I wanted some time off to like reassess my relationship. And it happened to be the pandemic, which ended up being the move because I would have probably ruined my relationship with my girlfriend if alcohol was on the table for me for that year, because I would have been drinking constantly.
Now, you made it the whole year without drinking, 2020? Did you feel good about that?
Yeah, it was great.
Now, then what happened on January 1st?
I got hammered. I got so hammered that night.
Were you also smoking pot in 2020?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the difference? What's the difference for you between cannabis and alcohol?
Oh my God, night and day, everything. Some of the things I love about alcohol, weed doesn't actually do for me, which is fascinating. My favorite thing about alcohol is it quiets all of the voices is like too strong of a word, but it quiets all of kind of your inner monologue for me. It basically like shuts all of that down and like I feel very present and I feel very much like everything's gonna be good. Like 2 drinks in. The 2, 3 drink world is like everything in that moment feels exactly right. Like whatever I'm talking about, I'm nailing. Whatever I'm hearing from somebody else, at 2-3 drinks, there's something valid about it, and there's something great about it. At 4 or 5 drinks, you're probably a fucking idiot. But you know, like it like shifts, it gets darker. But that 2-3 drinks is like all of the anxiety, all of the like comparing myself to other people, all of the just general human pressures are gone in a way that like weed doesn't do for me. Weed doesn't relieve like human pressure as much as alcohol does. It's like a complete blank slate. It's beautiful. And so, but then it turns and it gets really dark and it gets more into like ego stuff, and I become a lot more like harsher and like just more anger. There's a lot more anger.
At
not
what point?
Violent. Just if I continue drinking, and if I'm drinking consistently and on a consistent basis, that it can unlock that, or it can just unlock a general sense of like, I don't know, self-loathing kind of thing. Sometimes in the moment, but almost always afterwards. Like I'll wake up the next day with, I just discovered this is a term, but hangxiety, where you're like anxious, like I'm really stressed about what I said last night. I'm like going through my phone. I'm like really worried. I'll like replay conversations in my head and be like, I was a fucking asshole. Like I was such a douche about that, and be like, hey, I'm sorry. And then people be like, no, you weren't. But it's like, I felt like I was. And it's almost worse to feel like you were and you weren't than to like have not realized that you were. You know, I don't know. It's almost worse to like, I'm creating a problem out of nothing, which is sucks. And then I have an armchair theory that I have a kind of a slightly off-kilter brain chemistry to begin with. And alcohol, I think, because it's a depressant, I think it fucks up my brain chemistry even harder. And so then I just find myself like having a lot of days of depression tied to alcohol. So it'll be like 3 or something days of like real low, just like self-esteem and like not getting a lot done and like anxious and depressed kind of stuff. So that's alcohol. That's how alcohol hits me. Weed hits me in a way that like doesn't necessarily turn off all of my like bad thoughts or my like anxiety. And weed in high doses, like I get really anxious on weed, and like the wrong type of weed at the wrong time, I can get really anxious. But it does kind of make things like more fun and more interesting. And if I do overthink, like I'll overthink stuff on weed and be like, I don't think I'm nice enough. Like that's like a weed thought where I'm like, I don't know if I'm like being nice to people enough, you know? Like I don't know.
It's a recurring theme.
It's a recurring theme, yeah. Of like, if I get like really, really high, I'm like, all right, let's be nice. I'm like more attentive with my texts. I'm like, I feel like kinder. I have like more empathy. And there's no weed hangover. Like there's no weed hangover, and it doesn't adversely affect my mental health that I've noticed at all. The biggest, most annoying side effect is like if I smoke too much throughout the day, I just get to the end of the day and like I was tired all day. I just felt like vaguely tired all day. And like I had fun. I had a lot of fun throughout the day, but I was like, wow, I was like tired all day. So it just doesn't affect me in that way. And plus like the right, like figuring out the type of weed that you like to smoke, I think is like the biggest thing for me, at least. Cause I think it hits everybody's chemistry a little bit. It's a very personal drug where it's like everyone needs a different amount and a different type to have like their kind of ideal experience.
What's the definition of drug to you, Austin? What does drug mean?
Oh, that's a great question.
Your hat says quality drugs.
It does say quality
Is that
drugs.
A brand of drug?
I don't know. I found this hat. This was just a gift. It's not a sponsorship. It was just a gift. But
drug. It's kind of a loaded term, right?
It is a loaded term. That's a great question. I don't know what drug. I guess technically the definition is like a substance that you rely on for something. I guess. I think that would be a drug. Maybe
Google
or
it.
a pleasurable substance.
Let's use the Googler and see what drug definition.
I like it because it's, I don't know. It's just it is a loaded word, and there is a lot of connotations behind it, but I kind of like the good and the bad connotations of it in a weird way. Like bad connotations of it makes it kind of fun. It's fun to be like to talk about being on drugs with your friends, but once it gets out of that friend group, it's like we need to talk about these as medicinal substances so that we stop getting arrested for them.
Right.
You know? So it's, I don't know. I think it's like a pejorative. I think usually it's used as a pejorative, but
it's used as a pejorative a lot of the time.
Yeah.
The definition here says a medicine or other substance which has a physiological effect when ingested or otherwise introduced into the body. A medicine or other substance which has a physiological effect when ingested. And the verb use of drug is to administer a drug to someone in order to induce stupor or insensibility.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I guess you could verb yourself to induce stupor or insensibility. But I think you're right. It does. I think we associate medicine with positive aspects, and drug with the negative aspects, of whatever that substance can evoke. Right? Did you start smoking weed when you were 2 years old?
No.
3?
No.
5?
No.
When's the first time you smoked weed?
I was like 17 in the junior year of high school. That was my first time on a lunch break. It was great.
Yeah.
It was a really fun experience.
And then from there, it's been a natural fit.
For there, it's been a fairly natural fit. I would say it was not the most natural fit in North Carolina, where I lived before I moved out here. That sucked. I would still smoke it and I would still get it, but it was like so stressful because it was like so illegal and you're buying it from like legitimate, like people that have ties to things that are deeper than what you may want for just weed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But then moving out here, it was like, it's regular and consistent part of my life.
Is that where you grew up in North Carolina?
I lived there for 5 years. I grew up in upstate New York for like 14, like Rochester. Snow rednecks is the best way to describe kind of that existence. Like more rural than you would expect, maybe. People forget that New York is mostly just like rolling hills and woods. That's actually most of New York. And then there's like an island with all the cities, but yeah.
So we were talking about cannabis a lot, or weed.
Yeah.
Because you have an alter ego.
I do. Yeah. I have a social media character that I play.
And it may be closely tied to who Austin really is.
I like to say Stoney Mcblaze is my highest, best self. Highest in like all senses of the word.
Yeah.
Is Stoney Mcblaze for me.
How did this happen?
Dude, this happened. So it started a long time ago. I planted the seeds for this a long time ago. Before I moved out here I moved out to LA to be an actor. Before I moved out, I was like, I need to grow my hair out longer because every successful actor has had long hair at a certain point and usually the beginning point of their career, even if they're known for having short hair now.
Wow.
And then I saw Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I saw Spicoli, the character played by young Sean Penn, and I was like, that's what I'll do. I'll be Spicoli as a child, as like through my like teenage years, and then I'll transition into being a serious actor later in life. Like what I want to do is be a serious actor, but I know what I look like. Like I and you move to LA and like the first thing they tell you is like, you got to brand yourself. You got to find your type. And I was like, surfer, skater, stoner is my type. That's the person that I look. That's the first impression. When you see me, you're like, that's who that guy is. Like before I open my mouth, right? Like that's what people want me to, or like, yeah.
Are you usually this premeditated with things that you do in your life? This is a pretty organized approach to a big transition.
I'm a strategist, I think. I overthink things a lot. And I think about things a lot. And I try to have strategy. Like I try to be purposeful with most of my decisions because what I want is incredibly hard and the road I'm on is incredibly difficult. Yeah. And it's like without that, you're sort of just like flailing through it. So you definitely need a strong vision and then not be afraid to improvise from there. But
did your parents help instill that metered approach to your objectives?
Yeah, I think so. I think they did. Yeah.
So you're going to be a surfer, stoner, going to grow the hair out, come to LA, have the identity.
Yes, that's the early goal. And then started working, like getting cast in commercials and stuff. Like the parts that I would book were in that world. I did this thing for ESPN where I played Sky Sanderson, who was like a retired non-professional skimboarder, and I would do like, it was like for their Ocho thing. They like on August 8th, they'll do the Ocho, which is like a throwback to the movie Dodgeball, where like they're broadcasting it on ESPN, the Ocho. And I was basically a commentator. So they would just have me on the beach, like live commentating things that were happening. And I wasn't doing like a big voice or anything, but the point of view was like, oh, okay, this is the character. Like I've been cast as this character, right? And so I had that. That was the end of 2019. 2020 happens. All of 2020 happens. TikTok becomes a really big thing. I am not really on TikTok. I'm barely on TikTok. My girlfriend is on TikTok. She's also working in social media.
She's working in social media, meaning she's like working for a company putting out their stuff.
Yeah, she's both. She was doing like pop culture news, but those videos would go and she was like helping produce the videos, and those write and produce them and star in them as like the talent. And so those videos would go on social media, and then she was like just learning all the different things that you know about algorithms and all that stuff. So she got a lot of tips, and I saw this really funny dude, Jimmy Fowley. He's a member of the Groundlings, and he's been in like Search Party, I think. And I don't know, he's a great actor. Look up Jimmy Fowley, everybody, and follow him. He's hilarious. I saw him do a duet on TikTok where it was like an acting challenge where he like just acted really badly with someone, and it was like very funny. And so I Googled, because I was 26, just turned 26, or just turned... Yeah, I don't know. I think I just turned 26.
We're talking about 2020?
No, this is 2021. This is February 2021.
And you're crunching the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is February 2021, and I Googled how to do a TikTok duet, and I did 3. 2 of them completely flopped. One of them was... and I already had the name Stoney Mcblaze. So that was something I thought of because my roommate was making like a funny name for his character on something. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Let me make a funny name for him. I was like, Stoney Mcblaze. Hilarious. Like I just made me laugh. And I made it as a character on Skate 3. And it was funny to me personally. And then I just made it like all my social media at that point then became like Stoney Mcblaze. I just like made it just to have.
Yeah.
And one of the first videos I did on TikTok was me like smoking weed and challenging Snoop Dogg to a smoke off. And then they obviously banned it because I didn't know you couldn't smoke weed on TikTok. So the first one I did is me smoking weed, and then it gets taken down instantly. And then I don't really post. And then I post 3. 2 of them are like acting challenges that bomb. They're not funny. And then one of them is me wearing like a ski jacket and a beanie and doing a like joke commentary of Dusty Hendrickson's gold medal run at I think it was X Games or Dew Tour or something like that. And it did well for me because I had like 1,000. I had like less than 1,000 followers. I had like maybe like 20. I think I had 20 followers at the time, and it got 20,000 views the next day. And I was like, what is happening?
It's a crazy thing, right? You didn't plan for that. Like there was nothing you did
because all my like 15 other TikToks that I had done had like, my best one had like 2,000 views, and the other ones had like 58 views. So like to me, I was like just posting into the void, and then this one happened. I was like, holy shit. And then my girlfriend is the genius behind it all, because Casey Spivey, she's a genius behind it all, because she was like, this is your thing now. Don't do any of your other little jokes or characters. Don't just do this and do it consistently and make it the same thing. And then I took it like, because I studied at Groundlings also, which is like a comedy school, and they're about big characters and stuff. And so slowly over time, it has grown and gotten like bigger, because I just think it's the bigger I go, the funnier I think it is.
It's got to be kind of addictive feeling. I mean, when you open your thing and you got 20,000 views all of a sudden and something really worked, it's kind of like getting a jackpot. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And so then I just kept doing it and was consistent, and it's growing. It's fun. Yeah.
So how has this changed your life? You're making time for this. Are you making a living from this?
Close. I'm getting close. I've made some like money from brand deals a little bit. Not enough that I'm fully like 100% making all my money from it, but because I still do catering. I do a lot of catering still. But it's getting close.
As Stoney Mcblaze?
As Stoney Mcblaze, yeah.
You don't get a lot of work done, but you're fun.
I don't
to be
get a lot of
around.
work done, but they love me. Yeah. They're a huge fan. They think it's like great to have like someone who's just a complete idiot on their staff. They love that. They're like, one of the best parts about you is how little you work.
That's what the industry thrives on.
That's what the industry thrives
apathy.
on. Yeah, apathy and just inattention to detail. Yeah. You'd think that they'd want you to be attentive to details, but they actually do not care.
No, not in this high stress
Sensational. Yeah. It's great. I fall into every pool of every house that has a pool. I always fall into the pool. And they're like, all right, just so you know, there's a pool at this house. Do not fall into it. And I'm like, I will not fall into it this time. And I do every single time. And they love it.
So you have your shtick. It works.
It works. Yeah. It's fun.
So how would you go about people find you? They say, oh, we want your face associated with our thing.
Yeah. They've been reaching out, and the brands have just reached out to me, and I've been like, great.
Because you have 2.2 million.
There was a casting director that found me also, that put me in touch with a brand. So that was incredible.
Oh, cool. Wow.
But yeah, so it's just kind of been like coming to me, and yeah,
2.2 million followers
on TikTok. Yeah,
is that good for TikTok or is that low for TikTok?
I think it's good, but the ceiling is very high also. So it's one of those things where like when you have 10,000 followers, 50,000 followers seems impossible, and you're like, I don't know how the fuck I'll ever get there. And then you get to 50,000 followers, and you're like, okay, 50,000 is cool, but it's like, dude, I'll never get to like 100. Like, that's nuts. You know, like all those milestones seem unachievable until you achieve them, or seemed unachievable to me. Like, I always felt like, well, yeah, I don't know. This is probably where I'm going to stay. This is probably my plateau. And it's funny because like you get on TikTok, and it seems like the more followers that you get, the more people you see that have way more followers than you. And you're like, my thing's not really even that big. So it's good though. It's good. Yeah, it's definitely good.
So what's the cap on TikTok? I mean, do you have a target length for your pieces on TikTok? I mean, you do research on it, right? Like you find out like what's working. And my understanding of TikTok is that it's constantly evolving to where there are like new shticks being presented, or new formats, or new integration, whether it's like a duet or whether it's like they're new little motifs that come up, right? Are they all generated by users, or are they put forth through as part of the technology of the platform? How does that, because I don't have a lot of experience with TikTok myself.
Yeah, I think the trends, like the like there'll be, so it's put forth by users from what I understand. I don't know if there's a black hand or whatever, some puppet mastering that's happening behind the scenes. I don't know about that. Maybe. Wouldn't be surprised, but it feels from just a user's perspective that it's put forth by users. So somehow a sound will come out, and usually it's like, I don't know, some sort of like sound goes viral on its own, like an interview clip of someone usually where they say something outrageous or they just say something funny. The big one, like it's kind of dying out now, but it has been very popular, is like that kid who was being interviewed about corn, and he's like, I really like corn. I love it. And it's like a cute interview with this kid. And then somebody took it and made it a song. And so then people like they made it like musical. And so then people put that over like a video of their dog. And they're like, it's my favorite. They do like a mapping thing where like, this is my favorite thing. The kid talking about corn, and they're using it to talk about like their dog. Yeah. And I sound like I'm 90 years old explaining TikTok.
No, it's okay. There's no way not to avoid it. I'm the one instigating this.
But yeah, it's like explaining a joke. It's so funny. It's like explaining a joke, like something you just feel viscerally all the time, and then you're like trying to put it into like articulate it outside of like just your feelings. It's like such a wild thing to do. But yeah, so that is user driven. And then like people take that sound, and usually the funniest ones are people take a sound that's meant to mean something else, and then they use it in like kind of an ironic way. I feel like a lot of TikTok is like irony. And then people start using it and see that it's popular. And so then you try to like some accounts I do sometimes, but my stuff's mostly just duet based. So I don't necessarily live in the world of the TikTok trends as much. Sometimes I'll try to jump on them and like fit into that trend. but most of the time I do duets. So my big thing is like on TikTok is I find an interesting video and then I provide commentary for it.
Yeah. Did the video come from TikTok also that you're commenting on?
Yes. Yeah. It'll almost always come from TikTok. It'll be like someone puts it up, then I duet it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to do a hard pivot here.
Hard pivot.
You don't have to explain anything technical anymore.
No, it's good. I enjoy doing it. It's just funny. It's just funny to think about like, oh, this is crazy. I'm explaining a joke. Like,
yeah.
But it's important. Like, because not everybody's on TikTok, and like those people should understand how it works too.
It's a fascinating contemporary phenomenon that surged up into existence over a relatively short period of time.
Exactly.
And has an incredibly potent effect on a lot of people, right?
It does.
And I have made the choice just not to have an account because I'm doing other things or whatever, but friends of mine who do get sucked into it pretty easily. And that's
it's
just
wildly addictive.
Yeah. Well,
wildly
addictive.
Like it's so well
I think
made.
we kind of live in an addictive,
so well made.
A very, very addiction first, addiction valuation sort of society. But I want to talk about something that's tied to addiction. You know, I would imagine that your experience of ingesting psychedelic substances has been different than your experience of ingesting alcohol or weed. So tell me a little bit about what that's been like for you over time, because it's a very different ballpark, isn't it?
Yes. Very different ballpark. And so I did, my first psychedelic was mushrooms. And it was shortly after I moved out here. And that's the detriment of drinking sparkling water on podcasts, is all of a sudden you're burping into the mic.
You know what?
Constantly.
But the rewards far outweigh the risks.
Oh yeah, it's so selfish. It's such a selfish choice because I love it so much. So my first time was mushrooms. Half an eighth of mushrooms, and I fucked it up. I didn't know that there were rules to tripping. I have since learned that there are rules to tripping. The set and setting idea. The Timothy Leary, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that situation where they go through all the different suggested pieces of the environment that you have and all that stuff. The rules and all the big rules for tripping, like do it in a place you're comfortable in with people you know and like. Don't have a bunch of random people moving in and out for your first time. Don't drink alcohol. There was like another one too that I broke. But I did all of those. So I thought I liked the people I was with, and I thought I was in a place that was comfortable, a new apartment that I was living in with new roommates that I hadn't known very long. Took the half-eighth of the shrooms. Things were going swimmingly. Things were coming alive. Like all the best parts of doing shrooms were happening for me. My favorite parts were like things come alive. Like there was a picture of John Lennon, but his face was made up of all the words, and then that would come off, all the words would swirl around, and then it would go back into place. Like Harry Potter shit, you know? Like it was awesome. And like we were playing this like space game. It was, oh my God, I was like looked into my mug at one point, and like all the hot cocoa grounds like were sticking to the sides of the mug in a way that looked like I was looking into like a galaxy, like from Star Wars. It was like incredible. Like the lights were like moving the marble, not marble. It's an apartment in Sherman Oaks. The like whatever that material is on countertops, swirling. It looked like, cells, and like it looked like a mist. Like the floor looked like it was like moving fire. It was like all the best stuff. And that lasted for about maybe 30, 45. My roommate's having all these epiphanies of like, oh, we're all artists. And it's like, yeah, this is great. Then all of a sudden, people come over. One person that I liked, one total stranger, one person who I generally thought was annoying, her boyfriend who was great. And it was like all these people, basically strangers, around me. And then they start asking me questions like, how are you feeling? And for some people, that might be an okay question. I've discovered that it's my least favorite question on psychedelics because the way my brain is thinking about things, I can't translate it into words that you, a sober, are going to understand. Like in that moment, I'm like, I can't do it. I had another instance where my roommate came home when I was taking another dose of shrooms later on down the road, and same thing where he was like, so is it good or is it bad? And I was like, those words don't mean what you think they mean, man. Like those words, like, is it good or is it bad? And that fucking question, like, it was like 30 minutes of time wandering around my apartment trying to figure out how to answer this question. You know what like, because they're not, because sometimes good things aren't as good as you think, and sometimes bad things are actually good. But anyways, my first time ended up, so then someone gave me alcohol. I was drinking Jack Honey, which is a bad alcohol if you're sober. It's bad if you just want alcohol, but on shrooms, it's diabolical. Yeah. And so I get into this space where like I feel like trapped and I want to escape, and I lay down in my bed and I'm like falling through different like realities in my mind, like sort of like Doctor Strange, but it's like an endless falling sensation. It's terrifying. I'm on the ground at one point. I'm looking at my roommate who has a septum piercing. I was like, I gotta get like inside of the septum piercing, and then that'll help me. I guess I was like swimming through different like I don't really know how to describe it, but I felt uncomfortable and felt that I needed to change. I needed to like get away from that uncomfortable feeling. And so I like knocked over like my bedside table. I underhand threw. It wasn't a malicious throw, but it was a toss. I tossed a shoe at my roommate at the time. They were trying to help me. They were like, hey, are you okay? I spilled water all over myself and the couch. And like that happened for a little bit. And then I come out. And then like I kind of get over that. And I come out and I was like, hey. I was like, guys, what just happened? And they were like, you were wandering around the apartment, picking up objects, muttering to yourself. And we think you peed the couch. We think you peed on yourself on the couch. And I was like, no, it's definitely just water. It's definitely just water. And I thought it was water, but then I left later on down the road. I ended up leaving those roommates kind of on like not great terms. Like the rent was too expensive. I found a cheaper place and didn't give them enough notice and like left, which is not the most ideal thing to do as a roommate. I did find them people on Craigslist that they decided not to go with. So I kind of think they could have just grabbed a roommate and been fine. But anyways, and so he sent me he was like trying to get this money from me because whatever, we're getting in the weeds here. But he's trying to get this money from me, and he sent me this text. He's like, all right, whatever. And just so you know, I never talked about it because I know it made you uncomfortable, but you definitely peed the couch on shrooms. And I'll be honest, I think I probably did pee myself. I'll be honest, I think I pissed the couch on shrooms. And I blame the alcohol for that. I think the alcohol made my bladder overactive and it was like a nightmare. But that was when I learned the whole idea of like a bad trip can be a good trip, because I felt a lot of fear, but like the catharsis afterwards was great. And I felt, I don't know if I think I probably felt less fear and anxiety for a period of time. And then eventually it kind of, it came back, but I think briefly I was a lot better. So that was my first time.
Briefly, you're a lot better.
I think briefly I like didn't have as much fear and anxiety because I experienced so much fear and anxiety in the trip that it kind of was like cathartic. But I honestly don't remember too much about how I felt after the trip the days after the trip. I know the next day was Thanksgiving, and I know I was still kind of out of it. Thanksgiving was a little like everything was like I was very unsettled. Like I was like trying to get used to this reality again. But it was a great trip that turned into a very bad trip. Mm-hmm. But now we know that bad trips are, just lessons that you need to learn. Usually nothing truly bad happens on a bad trip.
Your recollection of what happened during the trip, though, is pretty precise.
Yeah.
It stuck with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what's it been like since, and how are you seeing like shrooms integrated into your life and your friends' lives and around?
I've tried to do bigger doses of shrooms twice since then. I tried a half an eighth and they were duds. They just weren't very good. I got high, but like just sort of like a strong weed high, none of the psychedelic stuff. And then I've done a full eighth since then at home. And that was really beautiful and very uncomfortable also. But there's moments of like pure beauty in that as well. And again, I really didn't set myself up for the best success with that, with my set and setting. Like, it was at home, which was okay, but like, I don't know. I didn't cut myself off enough from my phone. I was like taking a phone call. I was like texting my girlfriend who was going through a work crisis. I was like tripping balls on an eighth of shrooms, and I opened my phone and it's my girlfriend crying in a bathroom stall because she's having like a nightmare work trip, which is like horrifying to see. The funny part of that was I said the most cliche thing. I said, I'm sending you love and light. Incredibly cliche. But I sat down on my bed and believed that I was, like, I felt light shooting from me. And I literally believed I was sending love and light in that moment, which was funny to like viscerally feel like a very like cliche kind of like.
Yeah, but
like
possibly true.
But possibly true. Exactly. So anyways, I'm like speeding through this now, but the big takeaways from psychedelics that I've done acid once before, and I've done like 2CB, which is like kind of a synthetic, like small doses of that, a decent dose of acid though, like 2 hits of acid, which was solid. It got me there. But the big takeaway and the integration into life is twofold. One, I have this, the visceral feeling of like, we're all one, we're all interconnected. And that everything is connected. Like I've felt that in an emotional way that like you listen to lectures about it and you're like, yeah, I get that. That sounds right. But on the right dose of psychedelics, you feel that viscerally in a way that like you feel this table or something. It's like that truth is solid to you in that moment. And then I've been integrating it by microdosing recently, where I've got these really delicious mushroom, allegedly, mushroom, they're like Tootsie Rolls. It's taffy that the chef I know makes. And they're 0.1 gram per thing. And I will take a bite of that. So not even 0.1 of a gram. And have like a low grade mushroom trip for like, it trips like even too much. It's just a low grade feeling of shroominess for maybe like 2-3 hours. And it's been incredible. I was having a really bad week last week, where I was like, I felt very overwhelmed. I felt like I was having on the beginnings of having a panic attack for about like 3 days. Like everything just felt very like discombobulated.
Just naturally.
This was just happening. I mean, I haven't been drinking alcohol recently. I have this rule, which is how I know I'm an alcoholic, because I'm making rules about it, where I'm not drinking in LA right now. Just if I go outside of LA, it's fine.
Yeah, what constitutes Los Angeles?
Well, I'm going to Big Bear at the end of the month, and I'm drinking there. So that's kind of the limit, like 2-3 hours. San Diego, I'll drink in San Diego. It's just in LA. I'm just trying to curb it, get it as low as possible, and try to drink in the most positive environments, like with people. I'm like, framing drinking in a different way. But so I took the shrooms and like the little bite of shrooms, and I went outside and went for a run, and it was incredible. And I've gone through phases of doing it like a little bit in the morning and stuff, and it just like crushed all the feelings of anxiety and depression that were like kind of starting to come up, and just crushed it. And I basically had like, I'm also in therapy, which is great, because I feel like I take the things my therapist says, and then when I do the microdose of shrooms, I am reminded of what she says, and I'll kind of work on the things that she's been telling me to work on, like on my run. The fun thing about shrooms is you can take them and have a therapy session with yourself just about anywhere you want, which is really helpful. And it like grounded me, and I just had this, my like kind of like mantra or thought process was just basically like, you have everything you need right now, just be present with that and let kind of the future go. And that was incredibly helpful.
Do you think that everybody is equipped to have that self-therapeutic session when they ingest something like mushrooms?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I think it's because I'm literally in therapy now that I can do it. Yeah. I don't know if I could have done it previously.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have, but I wouldn't have been as aware of it. Like I probably would have just like felt good and stuff, but I wouldn't have like had that consciousness of like, oh, I'm working through something right now. It may have just been like I'm uncomfortable. I don't like these thoughts. Oh, but this is kind of helpful, but I don't really like this thought. You know, like that kind of like I might have fought it a little bit more without having the new. And I'm new to therapy. It's only been like 2 months.
Okay.
But
why'd you get into therapy?
I have a lot of childhood trauma and the alcoholism that I wanted to work through. But the biggest reason is my girlfriend and I are like going down the path of getting married. And
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah.
And so she's been in therapy a lot. Or therapy and like different kinds of things, like really worked on herself. And I really hadn't worked on myself in that. Like I'm trying to be better always, but I hadn't like done it in like a, you know, kind of a more clinical way of like, let's actually deal with some of these things that I push away and push down and like try to numb with alcohol. Let's actually talk to somebody professional about them. Because it was kind of like getting to the point where it was just incredibly unfair for her to have done all this work on herself and me to have done not the same amount of work on myself, and for us to like try to enter into like a forever partnership. That's really unfair of me to like not go through with that for her kind of, but also for myself. But she just was sort of the catalyst of like, she's like kind of like the why now. Like therapy was always something that I've
gonna happen.
And also I've done a little bit better financially recently. And so I suddenly had that extra like $400 a month to do therapy. It's so expensive. So I don't have health insurance. But it's so expensive. So I had a little bit of extra money and a little bit of extra encouragement. And it was like, boom, let's do it now kind of thing.
So knowing what your experience has been with psychedelics in particular, how do you see, because you're probably aware of some of the landscape right now about the legislation that's happening in different parts of the country, the research that's going on for different applications for different situations or maladies, right? So what do you think is a reasonable estimation of how this is gonna look in the future? Like how are psychedelics gonna be available? Have you thought about that at all? Or what would be a sensible use? Because the cannabis landscape has changed a lot, right, in recent history. There's a lot of push towards the psychedelic landscape changing radically nationally in this country. Yeah. So what do you imagine as being a good outlook for the way that psychedelics can be integrated into the culture more widely?
I think step one, everything. And I mean, I'm like, this is where I get my most like. This is probably one of my most liberal ideas. Is I truly believe in all drugs being legal. That model of like you can go and get a supervised dose of heroin in the morning, and then go to work after. Like in Switzerland, that's something they do. They'll give you a supervised dose of heroin, and then or whatever you want, really, and then you can go off to work after that. Personally, and I can't argue for it. I don't have statistics or science or logic to back it up. It's just a gut feeling of like, it'd be cool if people stopped getting arrested for it. Yeah. Like that's of all things. But that's also unfair to what we're talking about because heroin and psychedelics are not the same thing. They're very different. So psychedelics, I think, is an even easier argument of like, they should be fully legal. It'd be nice if we could find that happy middle ground between things not being completely taken over by corporate interests. Like weed, when it was medically legal, I think was a pretty good place. It felt pretty good. And now it feels good, but it's more expensive. And like, I guess the flip side of, there's like two sides of regulation that are tough, right? Like where you start to get to the point of like, are we just going to have in the next couple years, are we trending towards a cannabis landscape of like, you know, Marlboro cannabis that's just like, it's bullshit. And they've run all of like the good growers out of the game kind of thing. And we're stuck with like some kind of like is weed taking over? That probably is an irrational fear because there's so many people creating great cannabis that it's fine. But you'd hate to, I think that would be like a disservice to, I don't know. I'm kind of going back and forth in my head. I don't really know. But but legal for sure. And then if people see it as a therapeutic thing, it definitely is. And I think it should be in the conversation. Like it should be studied. like at least give us some data, like some hard data of legitimate studies so we can start to have like real conversations about if it's like, that's one of the things with weed that we don't really know about. Like I don't know if there's any definitive studies about the actual effects of if cannabis is good or bad in like a clinical way. You know, it's sort of all anecdotal at this point. And I think that's okay. I think it can just be fine. Like it's a substance that you want to ingest it. But what's fascinating about psychedelics is like they do have that potential. It seems like early clinical stuff seems like really helpful with like depression and things like that. So I think get it to be a supervised thing first. First, decriminalize it. So no one's in trouble for having it on their person and they're not looking for it and it's fine. Then what they're doing now is like, you know, keep moving it along in the medical space. Cause I think the people that need it most should be able to get it first. I think that's the thing. Like if you've got severe PTSD, depression, things like that, and you've tried other things and they haven't helped, you should be the first one in line to be able to try psychedelics as soon as they become, you know, safe enough for public consumption, to where you don't have to feel like risk takers are always going to take it. But some people who really need it might be afraid to take it because it's so far outside of the thing, outside of like normal, accepted culture. Right. So I think anything you can do to make it easier for the people that really need it, breaking whatever barriers are in their way, whether they're, you know, emotional or legal or medical, whatever that is, financial, breaking those barriers down is like the priority after legalization, so that we can just take them on our own if we want, but we also have the option to take them in like a supervised way. I think would be good. Does this make any sense, or am I just ping-ponging around? You know, I feel like I'm just that's all over the map.
That's how these conversations go. It's very ping-pongy, and thinking about these big ideas gets ping-pongy too. But I want to kind of close with an idea. So, you know, you're somebody who is introspective, probably even when they're not stoned. Is that still a term, stoned?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All the terms are great.
They all pass.
It's all funny.
Okay.
It's all fun or funny.
But when you're
token on the reefer, man.
When you're token on the reefer, you might be a little bit more introspective than maybe when you're just driving to your next appointment or whatever, right? So, what do you think is funny, Austin? Like what? Like you're introspective. You're aware of your mental health. You're aware of like your history. Like you remember events from your very flamboyant trips. You integrate like psychedelics and cannabis into your life regularly, alcohol as well.
Yeah.
So how does that influence your humor, and what do you find funny, and what purpose does humor serve in your life?
So humor, for me, the purpose it serves is a break from the worst parts of your life. So what I want to do with my humor, and when I'm looking to consume humor, is I'm looking for that quick break from the big things that I got to deal with, the car that I have that doesn't run, the relationship that I have I have a great relationship, so that doesn't work. I don't want to accidentally throw her under the bus. I got an incredible relationship, so that doesn't apply to me. But a lot of people are in tough places,
or bosses,
relationships,
or family members.
All the pressures of life, comedy, in my opinion, should relieve it and not add to it. So, and then things I think are funny is big fish out of water moments or perspectives. Like Borat is really, really funny to me. Like his interactions with the world and people reacting to him is really funny to me. Anything Sacha Baron Cohen does is really funny to me. The ridiculous and the absurd are really funny to me. That's like...
It's a relief, isn't it?
It's a relief. And also, I have a pseudo-nihilistic perspective that nothing really matters and things are like pretty random. I don't always believe that, but sometimes I do. And things are like really random. And I kind of like stuff that reinforces like how like random or ridiculous life can be. So I think things that highlight that are really funny.
Well, you said nihilistic, but earlier in this conversation, you alluded to the realization that everything is love, right? It's all unified as love, right?
Exactly.
So maybe the nihilism is a love-colored nihilism.
100%. Yeah. No, I'm not like I don't have like nothing matters so we shouldn't care. It's like nothing matters. So like you can care about stuff because it doesn't matter if you care about it. You know, it's like cool. Like I can love this thing because fucking why not? Why not love this thing? That's life. Life's about making these like random, you know, kind of choices. So I like that. And I also like, I really do like satire, and I do like acerbic satire. Like, you know, South Park is a great example of, I haven't seen all the episodes, but I love like, if they have a great roast of someone, I love that. You know, I really love that. That's like really funny to me. Anything big character, like What We Do in the Shadows, the show What We Do in the Shadows, they're all these vampires. That's hilarious to me. Like stuff like that, like big characters in funny situations is like usually my favorite kind of, with clever writing is like kind of my favorite type of humor.
Well, Stoney Mcblaze is a pretty big character.
Massive. Yeah. It's like kind of cartoonish in its energy, which is fun.
I'm excited to see where you go with it. Congratulations on getting something that feels good to do.
Yeah.
Regularly is
Yeah,
fun.
really fun.
And congratulations on the progress with the girlfriend and the therapy and making it work out here, because it's a wild place, right?
Yeah. It's the Wild West for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Austin, thanks for sharing your time with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. I definitely feel bad about how much I talked. I feel like I really rambled.
You're the guest.
I really rambled. That's fair.